Hi, I'm Jay Fallon. Thanks for listening to The Slippery Slope. So I have not posted for a couple of days now, mainly because I live in the Whitsundays in North Queensland or central to North Queensland. So if you haven't seen the news, we're currently, seems like we're being flooded at the moment. I think we've had like 300 or 400 mils of rain in just 2 days, something like that at the moment. My wife informed me that it's very likely we can't actually get into town at the moment. So we'll wait and see what happens. So got other things going on. Anyway, so I wanted to talk a bit more about. Well, I didn't want to talk about it. I thought there was other things to go through, but really need to discuss what's happening with the good old Queensland police at the moment. They are off to a horror of a start for the new year for 2023. They did. It was only last week, I believe. There was a nice little puff piece regarding a child, obviously an ill child who's had this dream, this desire to join the police. Well, I think it's a good thing, and the commissioner was there. They did a whole parade for this little boy. Brought out the marching band. I think the minister was there, presented him with a little badge and everything, took him on the helicopter. It was a great puff piece. It was the kind of news that the Queensland Police Service really needed at the moment. The commissioner, who I'll say this straight up, she should have lost her job. She should not be the commissioner anymore, but she still is. She was there. Spent a lot of money promoting this because Queensland Police need some good publicity. And so there it was, only a week or so ago. This footage of this young child who had this desire to join the police, and so they were making it possible. I think he's like 8 years old. So it's very heartwarming. It's a good story, very good story, and all the best for that little boy. But it's about the only good story the Queensland Police have had. I did bring to you the story about the senior constable who was charged with drink driving last week, but that's just the tip of the iceberg at the moment. I'm going to share this story with you, and we'll go through it together. It just seems, like I said, the police cannot catch a break. Queensland Police, anyway. So this comes from the Brisbane Times. Police officer charged with computer hacking. Okay, now this is just one of several that we're going to go through of charges that have been brought. So it says that Queensland Police have charged another of their own, this time for alleged computer hacking, improper disclosure of information, the allegations against the 26-year-old constable, 26, and he's still a constable. So, very little service, basically. From the central region, made public on Saturday, was the fifth public report since Tuesday about serving Queensland police officers facing serious charges. Yeah, you heard it right. The fifth public report. So he was suspended from the force and was expected to face Proserpine Magistrates Court on Monday. So Proserpine's Magistrates Court, that means he's in the same Whitsunday area as me, possibly. Well, I don't know if you can hear that. It's starting to rain, just come down heavy again. So I'm sorry for the noise, but I really want to get this out. So it goes on to say that this does not mean that the allegations against the officer have been substantiated, the QPS said in a statement. It did not release further information because they don't like to. It follows news this week that the other Queensland members had been stood down following separate alleged incidents involving domestic violence. It was a pretty horrific case of domestic violence, another case of stealing by an officer, and also the drink driving case, which is the one that I'd spoken about last week. So the details provided by QPS were generally vague, which they always are, but in keeping with our commitment to high standards of behaviour, transparency, and accountability. That's a load of garbage. It's keeping within their commitment to high standards. That's because their high standards aren't actually, their high standards wouldn't meet anyone else's. It doesn't meet the public's standards. Doesn't meet what we all expect from our police. They call it high standards. I call it fairly mediocre standards. Anyway, so one of the officers, a 46-year-old senior sergeant, if you don't know, has a lot of experience. They've been in the game for a long time. They should flipping know better. He's from the southern region, was remanded to face Richland's Magistrate Court on February 10 after he was charged with a raft of alleged offences, including family violence, theft, weapon possession, and having suspected tainted property. So on Tuesday, police announced a 41-year-old senior constable from Operation Support Command. This is the story I brought to you last week. Operation Support Command is the command that I used to work under. It was like the umbrella command that I used to work under. Operation Support, Special Operations Unit I was in. So he's the one who was accused of high-range drink driving after he was involved in a car crash while on the job. Now, they keep saying he's on the job. It would be very interesting to know the exact time frames and his shift times. But they keep saying in these news reports I've read a couple of times that he was actually on the job, which is very interesting. Knowing what these guys do, it's very interesting to say that he was actually on the job. There's a few more things to this story, I believe. So the man allegedly recorded this is one I was talking about, the blood alcohol content of 0.177 after the two-car crash on Bladen Street, Yamanto. Wow. On the evening of Jan 4, no one was seriously injured. 2 people were sent to hospital still. 2 innocent people, who weren't drink driving. And the officer was stood down before his court date in Ipswich on Feb 1. So another 41-year-old senior constable from the Central Region who was due to appear in the Longreach Magistrates Court on Jan 17th, which is tomorrow, on separate charges of stealing. My goodness. If you don't know stealing is wrong as a police officer, you are a numpty. No further information was provided. I love that. No further information is provided. That's a part of their transparency. QPS transparency, a high stand. Anyway. So in another matter, police said on Friday that a 47-year-old senior constable from a Brisbane region had been charged after recording alleged BAC of 0.099. So again, another relatively high reading for blood alcohol content, basically drink driving. Why I really want to talk about this is all just in the last the last week or so. These things have happened, or a little over a week for one of them, Jan 4th. I believe thoroughly that the Queensland Police had lowered their standards quite a while ago. You're always going to get, it's a large organization, you're always going to get people who, have a bit of a brain fart, let's call it, and make silly decisions, or people who just, start to lose the plot after a while, maybe, and we all make silly decisions along the way. However, Queensland Police had also made some silly decisions. They had lowered the standard badly, just trying to, what they called make things a bit more equal. But really what they did was just lower the standards. They lowered the moral standards. They lowered their ethical standards, really, when they were recruiting new police, looking for new police. Also, they'd gone out and attacked officers who had high morals, who stood, for high ethics within their own personal lives. QPS had gone out of their way, and I'm talking about the police who'd stood up against the vaccine mandate. Queensland Police Service, the older, and the commissioner that we have at the moment, they went out of their way to attack officers who stood for what they believed in, who had high ethical values. They went out purposely and attacked those officers. So even though they've dropped the vaccine mandates, and not everything to me comes back to the vaccine mandates, but I think it just shows what QPS, Queensland Police Service, and the Commissioner Katarina are all about, and the whole leadership. Even though they dropped the vaccine mandate, they still left the clause that anyone who had not received the vaccine and had been undergoing, were going through, had been stood down or, undergoing disciplinary action, they would still be pursued for disciplinary action, even though they dropped the mandate. And we're seeing with these issues from these 5 different officers, these 5 different cases that we've just talked about, this kind of behaviour all goes back to the Queensland Police leadership, the way they've recruited poorly, the standards that have been lowered constantly, and yet they will attack good officers with high moral, ethical standards, but they allow people to stay in as long as they got the jab. As long as they got the jab, they're all good. But the officers who had enough guts and grit, determination, who knew what they stood up for and fought back against the mandate, they will continue to be attacked by the Queensland Police Service, because the leadership that we have will never admit that they were wrong, and they will continue on their merry way because they will not be held accountable. We need to hold our government accountable in Queensland and make sure that they hold the leadership of Queensland Police accountable for some of the just appalling decisions that they have made over probably the last decade, really. That's my opinion. Please like and share, and let me know what you think about what's going on in the Queensland Police at the moment. It's pretty disappointing. Every day it's like just a bad news day for those fellas. Old Katarina. I'd love to know what's going through her little head at the moment. Anyway, it's my opinion. Thank you for listening to The Slippery Slope.